And we are back with episode 46 of the Casual GM podcast. I am your host, Drew, and joined, as always, by my co host, Mike. Mike, how are you?
Little warm,
Yeah.
Drew. I'm outside of Michigan. It's
Yeah.
great. It's great.
Many people share your opinion. Many,
Yes.
many people.
Yeah.
So
What's the weather? Am I missing anything good in the state of Michigan? Or
it's
just cold?
super nice here today.
Nice.
It was above 50 and sunny. No
Same
wind,
here.
no
It's
rain. Yeah.
not much different then.
Yeah. So it's been a real pleasant day so far for everybody involved in this podcast. I'm excited.
Excellent.
So, but good news, we have a new subscriber.
We do. Welcome, James Stratton. I don't remember if he was in the chat last time or if he happened upon us just naturally, but welcome to the subscriber list, growing leaps and bounds, and he is just one of many.
We want to be able to see every single subscriber to the podcast when they happen. So every time we actually text each other back and forth, like, "Oh, we're up to 68 subscribers." So it means a lot to us. It's really fun.
Yeah, we appreciate James popping his name, making it visible to us, so we can give him a shout out. Not everybody does that, so awesome. Appreciate you, and glad to have you on board.
James, if you're in the chat, feel free to say hi, everybody.
Right on.
Feel free to say hi and make yourself known. So
Joey, Mark, and Don are already in the chat. They're
glad
on
Mark's
time.
Yeah,
it's pretty great.
So let's do some news and notes around the NFL, just real quickly, mostly from the Lions. The NFL owners meetings are taking place this week. So we have some good interviews from Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes at those meetings. They're answering a myriad of questions, like, of course, kind of on the sly. So they're not giving away too much of the in-house information, as it were, that we're so desperate to learn about, right? That we have to infer by the moves they actually make. But that's happening. Check those out on YouTube. You can get I've watched them a couple times. It's pretty good stuff. The Lions are apparently interested in bringing in defensive tackle Calais Campbell for a visit.
Which pretty solid. I wouldn't be super upset about.
Love.
Yeah,
I would love. So Calais Campbell has been one of my favorite players in the NFL since he got traded to Baltimore for nothing. So I believe he started out in Arizona and then went to Jacksonville for a couple of years. And then they got priced out of him and they ended up trading him to Baltimore for a late round pick. And then he basically has been a stalwart on their defensive line ever since. And he is well into his, like, I should be trailing off my talent, years, and has still produced, and so, like, even if you brought him in on like a 1-year deal, that's leadership, it's shoring up that position, at least in a rotational way, could not possibly be a bad signing. Would absolutely adore this signing. So hoping that happens. The NFL approved the use of the number 0. Great. It has some significance to somebody for some reason, and I don't care because it's a number that you wear on your jersey, so that's going to work out just fine for everybody.
Yep.
And
it'd be interesting to see who the first person that goes, "Ooh, I want 0."
I would bet.
I'm guessing a cornerback, right?
I'm going to guess JMO.
Yeah, really? Why JMO? Was he a 0 previously in his life?
He was not. He's always been 9, from what I understand. Okay. But like 0 wasn't available, and I'm wondering if, like, I doubt it because I don't know him, but like, would he want to put his stamp on that number in the NFL? Who knows? So, but
I was thinking cornerback, like, sure. Revis Island is a 0 or that kind of thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. So the other thing that's noteworthy in the NFL is that a group consisting of Magic Johnson from the NBA fame is putting together a $6 billion bid to purchase the Washington Commanders.
That's a lot of billions.
It's a lot, so like, this is the thing that we've seen across across sports now is that when a professional franchise gets sold, you start with billions, right? So like I think Denver went for like 4.5 a couple years ago. Washington's going to probably go for 6 or 6 plus. You know, they're just going to keep becoming more and more profitable, and it doesn't matter which one it is.
Who's Miami's head coach? Mike.
Oh no,
I
McDonald.
don't know, starts with an F, right?
No, it's Mike McDonald.
Oh, McDonald. Yeah. So I don't know if you saw this, but they had brought it up to him somehow that it was going to be sold for like $6 billion or whatever, and he's like, "Wow, I can't believe it's worth that much," and I had to pay for my coffee.
Right.
And I'm like, wow, that's a terrible culture when your head coaches or assistant coaches or whatever are like having to pay for their own coffee. They don't have like, coffee for the coaches.
Yeah. I remember a couple of weeks ago they put out some kind of like the NFLPA put out some survey that they did where they surveyed NFL players about a number of different topics to do with their franchises.
Yeah.
And Arizona finished at the bottom of all the different criteria. Like they were the least
good.
Yeah, they were the worst. They were the worst franchise as voted on by the players. And like they're the only team in the league that when their players get food from like their food prep or cafeteria group, they just deduct that from their paychecks. They charge their players for food.
Wow, that's absurd.
I just don't.
So that's actually a topic I wouldn't mind hitting on one of our maybe weeks that were less active with news and stuff, is kind of talk about, because the Lions actually were looking good on that. There were some I was surprised at some of the things like the LA Rams. They had a really poor score for facilities, and I'm like, I toured SoFi Stadium and it's gorgeous, but apparently their practice field is like a high school or something like this. Is really, really terrible practice. They're building a new one or whatever, but like right now, I guess it's really bad. But the Detroit ended up being pretty good, so I wouldn't mind kind of going into that as part of our, part of building a team is also building a culture, right? So we kind of talk about what that looks like from the Lions and what the players think of ownership and being a member of the team. So we'll do that in a future week.
It sounds like a perfect after the draft topic.
Yep, I'm thinking the same.
So, yeah, excellent. Well, that's great. So, also DJ Chark signed with the Carolina Panthers, so he will not be back. I've never seen people bemoan this move more for a guy that only played 11 games last season
and was during those. Like he wasn't terrible, but he wasn't like a game changer by any means.
I certainly liked having him out there, right? Like I would have preferred that he had been on the field all the time than just 2/3 of the season. But like, I don't know that he's irreplaceable.
Oh, for sure.
So like
sometimes it's like the mediocre is better than the unknown star who may end up being more mediocre but higher paid.
Exactly. So one Lions YouTuber that I follow had said that like the Lions already have a DJ Chark replacement on the roster. And so I was like, okay, I'll bite. Who is it? And so I clicked on the article and read it, and it's like Jameson Williams. And I was like, Jameson Williams is not a replacement for DJ Chark. He's Jameson Williams.
Yeah. He's an upgrade.
He's the Jameson Williams on the Lions.
He is our Justin Jefferson, right? He's not our DJ Chark. He's our Justin Jefferson.
I think certainly they're going to treat him like a number one, right? Like up until now, I don't think that St. Brown has really had anybody that could challenge him for targets. But with a healthy Jameson Williams heading into the season, I'm curious to see what that's going to do to St. Brown's like target and reception volume. So
yeah.
What is Don?
Anything else around the NFL before we go into our topic du jour?
I don't really have anything. Aaron Rodgers hasn't yet to be traded, which I think is just ridiculous that they're waiting. I don't see what the reason to wait is for either team. I would think that Green Bay would want to be done with this more quickly than, say, the Jets. But I would also think that the Jets would be like, we want to finalize this so that we can get it out of the media and like focus on anything else, right?
Who do you think has leverage? Who has the leverage in this?
No one has any leverage. That's the weird thing.
What I was talking to my dad and my son, Danny, and we're like talking about this. So like, well, the Jets have some leverage because they know that Green Bay wants to trade him, and they know that he wants to go there. So that provides some leverage. But at the same time, Green Bay has leverage by the fact they don't have to trade him. So like, I mean, granted, you don't want a $50 million backup on the squad, but like they don't have to trade him. So they don't have to take like this absurd deal that costs them, 2 arms and 2 legs and a butt cheek. I had to get a Dan Campbell thing in there. It's a Lions podcast, but like they don't have to take an absurd deal. They can wait until it's the right deal. Whereas the Jets are like, well, we know this is where he wants to go, and I know you don't want a $50 million backup, so we'll wait. And it's got this weird tension between the two teams.
The only thing that I could possibly hope for is that it hurts both teams somehow. Like, I have never liked the Packers. I can't stand Aaron Rodgers, and I absolutely despise the Jets. So I guess it's fine. My only problem is having to hear about it in like the national media. I would just rather not hear about it anymore.
He is a meme machine, Mr. Rodgers.
That's true. His darkness retreat. God damn it. It's unbelievable. Simply unbelievable. So, but no, let's get into the main oh, you got the banners handled. Okay. The main topic today. This was recommended to us by our good participant, Mark Malik. Is that how we're saying it? Malik? Is that right? It's a hard CH. It's not Malich. I assume it's Malik. He'll let us know. So today we're going to talk about why the Lions should seriously consider a quarterback at 6. Hard CH. Thanks, Mark.
Hard CH.
I was pretty sure, but you never want to assume. So I wrote down some reasons over the last week as to why I think that would be beneficial for the Lions to really consider a quarterback at 6, even if it's the 4th option, right? So here's some ground rules for like my thinking. You're welcome. Number one, I am assuming
for the sports information, stay for the empathy.
Yeah, right. If there's one thing in my life I've been really good at, it's empathy. So we're using the podcast to work on that a bit. But number one, ground rule. I assumed that the Lions would not trade up from 6. So that thought pattern didn't enter my consideration. So just know that. Nobody ever asked me how to pronounce my name. It's
Joey, obviously.
Joey I mean, it's the words are I don't even know what they're obvious, Joey. You're obvious, but that's fine. No one needs mystery all the time. So so number one, that the Lions are not going to trade up. Number two, there's no drama or urgency to the Lions having to make a pick of any particular player in this draft. Their offseason has allowed them just about the greatest flexibility that I can think of in recent draft history. So
Mark asks, this is a great question. Did Dan Campbell and Holmes not already squash this whole quarterback thing? And I would say no.
Right.
And the reason I would say no is just the words that he said, and this has been brilliant about Brad Holmes this whole time. Basically what he said was, we can do whatever we want with this pick. We are going to take the best player available. We don't mind if we're being deep at a specific position. And but they did say Jared Goff is our starting quarterback. That's no lie until he's
That's
not, right?
right.
So the words that he's using are probably very specifically picked out and practiced because yes, Jared's our starting quarterback. Yes, he's going to be our starting quarterback this season. If we end up with Anthony Richardson, he's still going to be our starting quarterback this season, almost for sure. The same with Levis. I don't think Young or Stroud will get to us, but if they do, he can still be that quarterback the first season, even if they fall to us. So they're not wrong. And he's also said that he's talked to Jared Goff about their intentions at the quarterback position. That doesn't mean anything other than, hey, we told you, he's probably going to tell him, we are going to try to find another quarterback for this team. We need more than just you, because if you go down, everything goes down with the ship, and we don't want to do that. We want to have somebody to build for the future. The timeline, I'm not sure he's talked to him about or has made any promises. So no, I don't think they squashed the whole quarterback thing.
So the way that I look at it, and I think I agreed with everything that you said right there, Mike.
Holy crap.
The way that I have viewed this, or like the way that I view any team talking about any player that is currently on their roster, okay.
Yep, sorry.
Is that there is no upside. There is no upside to saying anything negative about a player that is currently on your roster that you have not definitively decided to move on from. No, there is no upside. Like if you were one of the other 31 teams in the NFL and your general manager or owner or coach or other players or whomever comes out in the media and says something negative about a player that's on your roster, that can only hurt you when it comes to like whether or not you're going to re-sign a player, whether or not you're going to be able to get draft compensation and trade for a player, the chemistry in the locker room if that player was to return. There is zero upside to saying anything negative about a player on a roster if you are in coaching or the front office. None. So if you go by that rationale, then every front office and coaching staff, when they are asked about a player on your roster, is only ever going to be positive, which means, unfortunately, that there is some amount of them being disingenuous when it comes to like what they're saying about some of the players that come up in these situations. Not everything for everybody in the NFL at all times is completely positive. That's just not how life works, right?
Let's be real, it's a business, and everybody knows it. Players, coaches, and GMs.
Right. So we know that like recently the Lions have just gone through this, right? So like the Lions have had Jamal Williams leave for New Orleans. There was some, I don't know about controversy, but like there was some like, oh, we love Jamal. Jamal's been a huge part of this locker room. We'd love to have him back. Signed with the Saints. Okay. Doesn't change what they said, but they're also not like, he's terrible and he's asking for way too much money and we're not going to pay that. They've only ever said good things. So I can't sit here and say, well, Dan Campbell put out another quote about Jared Goff, because everyone else in the NFL can tell the situation that the Lions are in just by looking at the forest for the trees, right? Like it's, hey, you guys are at 6. You have Goff on this season, under contract for this season and the next. And you could this might be a good time because of the way your roster has been constructed and the timeline that you're on, to invest in a quarterback. You're in a position to do so. Teams typically do that, So I think that they're saying all the right things, but like those are the things that they are required to say if they are going to be like a competent front office. So if you believe that what they put out into the media is gospel, then yeah, they did squash it. But I've seen like even the Ravens right now, like John Harbaugh said in the media yesterday, like, we love Lamar Jackson. We can't wait to have him back in the locker room. Like everything's fine. And then like the day before that, Lamar is like, I asked the Ravens to trade me on the 2nd of March. And now I'm making that public. And John's like, oh, Lamar, great. Salt of the earth. We love the guy. He could babysit your kids, or whatever.
We really hope this works out. We can get him back
Right.
on the field.
Because there's no
And they're like,
reason
I
to
just
say,
want my 2 draft picks or even more if you trade for him.
right. I mean, like, there's just no reason. There's just no reason to say anything negative. It doesn't help you whatsoever. So I don't think that it's been put to bed. I think the people that are fans of Goff, especially like the beat writers that are fans of Goff, have put out the narrative that, oh, this is, write it in stone. The Detroit Lions love Jared Goff. But I have a couple of points later on in like this original topic here that might persuade you to take another look. I don't know. Well, let's get into them.
All right, let's do it.
Number one, the Lions have the opportunity right now to invest in a rookie quarterback. Thanks to the Rams and their season completely falling apart, the Lions have the number 6 overall pick in the draft. That's not news. What is news is that the pre-draft process has shaken a couple of things loose, right? Jalen Carter has the legal issue. He's potentially going to be there for us at 6 when he otherwise would not have been. Anthony Richardson has a great combine. He moves into the conversation for teams to draft a quarterback in the top 4. Okay, how does it affect the Lions? Well, either the player that might fit best for like short-term need-based positional thinking, Jalen Carter, could be there, and depending on their comfort level with him, they could certainly take him. Or if they're not comfortable with him and the 4th quarterback off the board, regardless of who that is sitting there at 6, do you look at this and say, the Rams, we traded Matthew Stafford for Goff and 2 first-round picks. Those picks could have easily turned into Jamison Williams, plus or minus a little extra capital, and a potential QB of the future, plus Jared Goff. That's not a bad return. So, along that same line of thought, it is cheaper now to draft a quarterback than it will ever be realistically for the Detroit Lions to acquire a new quarterback. This is it. Like, this is like, you are planning to be a playoff team for at least next season, potentially, the way that the roster is constructed, more seasons. They went out in free agency and signed and re-signed players, and we haven't seen them do that to this level under this administration yet. And they have more cap space coming out of free agency than they did headed into it. So basically, they added these guys to the roster for no additional cap space. That's awesome. And if you want to add a rookie contract QB to that mix, that's the gasoline in the engine that's going to propel the roster to be able to move forward. So even if the guy is bad, right? Like, even if the QB is not good or not ready to play in the NFL right away, you're going to save, based upon what Goff is making, his cap number, you're saving $19 to $20 million this year and next year, assuming Goff was off the roster immediately. So that $20 million per season is stuff that they can use to, like, what if you said, hey, if the Lions draft a quarterback at 6, you're going to re-sign Chauncey Gardner-Johnson to a multi-year deal. And I don't know, Emmanuel Mosley or whatever his name is. Like, those become rostered players for the immediate future of the Detroit Lions, not just on 1-year deals. You get to do stuff like that because you have a quarterback on such a cheap contract. So they have the opportunity at 6. It's never going to be cheaper than that. There's no scenario where that gets cheaper. It is impressive, Don. That's a good point. So, and if you want to look at some of the reasoning behind my thoughts behind the fact that this is cheap right now as opposed to in the future, look at things like what San Francisco did to trade up for Trey Lance, the Mitchell Trubisky trade, Deshaun, what do I have here? What Carolina did to move up from 9 to 1 this season. Look what they gave up, and then when you have like other scenarios like trading for an established quarterback like the Rams did to acquire Matthew Stafford, you have deals like Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson. Like there is no comparison between what is the cheaper of all of these things, and it's just drafting a guy at 6. And it doesn't have to be their guy, right? Like let's say it's Will Levis. He seems to be the 4th guy on the board for a lot of mock people right now, a lot of analysts. If you take Will Levis at 6 and he sits on the bench for 1 year, and then you let Jared Goff go in the offseason and you save you have $5 million dead cap hit from Goff in 2024, or you trade him and you start Will Levis. What's the downside? He could be bad, right? That's the downside, is that you don't know. Like he is
the fear of the unknown.
Right. The fear of the unknown. That's another point. You're foreshadowing, Michael. You're excellent at this.
Yes.
So
damn, I'm good.
He could be bad. Lots of quarterbacks, regardless of where they're drafted, don't work out, right? Whether they're top 10 picks, number 1 overall, top 5, or back end of the 7th round. Some guys do work out. For as much as you might say it's not going to work out with whatever quarterback you draft there is a reality that it does work out. And if you are correct, and if it does work out, and you have the front office and you have the continuity, of like the coaching staff, the philosophy, the culture, and the roster around a guy like that to grow with and build with, those are things that lead to a player developing in a positive manner, right? And like if Jared Goff has proved anything to me, is that you don't have to be very good in the NFL at the quarterback position and still win football games, right? So like here's 2 quarterbacks that I want to highlight. That if
wow, that was a backhanded compliment if I've ever heard one.
Well, it was supposed to be an insult, so I'm glad that you classified it as a backhanded compliment. So like let's look at 2 guys that I think are very similar quarterbacks and how their teams built Super Bowl contenders and winners off of their rookie deals. And that's the Philadelphia Eagles with Carson Wentz, and it's the Los Angeles Rams with Jared Goff. So like I think these guys go 1 and 2 in the same class, right? Both trade ups to go get these guys. And Jared Goff in his 3rd year in the league, he spikes, right? Like that was his best season in the NFL, was the season that he took his team to the Super Bowl. Makes sense, right? Like your quarterback's playing as well as they've ever played, plus your roster. Now you're getting to the point where it's like, okay, we can contend not just for a playoff win, but for a deep run. Hey, sprinkle a little luck in there, because everything in sports needs a little bit of luck. And now we're in the Super Bowl. We got a chance to be Super Bowl champions. So 2018, they go to the Super Bowl. They don't win. They run up against Tom Brady. Best shot, good shot at it. But that roster is constructed off of the back of Jared Goff's rookie contract. Year before, I believe in 2017, I think it was 2017, the Philadelphia Eagles, Carson Wentz is playing his best football of his career. Like he spiked, and he spiked for 12 games, and then he got hurt, and Nick Foles came in and carried them across the finish line. But once again, the Eagles had built their roster based off of what Carson Wentz's rookie contract was. They took the savings, they invested it in free agency, and now they have a roster that can support a young quarterback. Guess what? The Eagles turn the position over when Carson Wentz goes to shit. They trade him away, still got value for Carson Wentz, I might add. They draft Jalen Hurts in the 2nd round, took a couple years. 5 years after they won a Super Bowl, they're back in the Super Bowl again with a new quarterback. So yeah, it can happen. Is that an outlier?
Rookie deal.
Absolutely. What's in common in these 3 things? Quarterbacks on rookie deals.
And that's not to say that the Chiefs didn't do the exact same thing.
They 100% did. They had Alex Smith. They weren't paying him top dollar.
He was a Pro Bowler his last year.
He was a competent quarterback, right?
Yeah.
And like they were like a 10-11 win team, made the playoffs, they trade up to 10, they snag Mahomes, and it turns out that like they happen to hit. No, if anyone thought that Patrick Mahomes in the top 10 of that draft would end up being anything remotely close to what Patrick Mahomes was, he just would have been drafted.
Yeah, he would have been number 1 overall.
He would have been. You would absolutely take that guy.
Yeah.
But 9 teams or whatever, well, 10 teams, 9 teams before that had picks before him, and the 10th team that traded out of that spot all could have had Patrick Mahomes, and they didn't. You know,
so,
and so like
Don brings up a good point. Said, but my only problem is passing up possibly a stud who could start right now. And I guess my response to that is our window wasn't only this year, right? Our window is 5 years. We don't want a really tight window. We want to extend that window as long as we can.
Right. So let's address that point with a little bit more introspection, shall we? So like,
sure.
So this is a great point, and I've seen that a lot of people make like what I would call similar points. Is like you could take a player that's going to help you win more games this upcoming season, right? So like a player that perhaps like let's say like Jalen Carter or Bijan Robinson, right? Like those are 2 positions that do not take a lot of adjustment time to make an impact in the NFL, right? They can just come in, start playing, and they're going to contribute. So I agree with Don's point. You can do that. And like the common mentality in the NFL is make that play, improve incrementally year to year, end up where you want to end up in a Super Bowl. That's fine. You know, there's more than one way to build a team. I'm only talking about one particular way right now, but like Don's method would absolutely work for a lot of teams. All I'm saying is that the Lions have options. And I think that maybe if they want to take the option available to them, assuming there's a quarterback on the board, that gives them the highest potential return on that draft pick, it's taking a quarterback. So, so let's look at the mirror image of that, and that's exactly right, Mike. So like let's take a mirror image of what Don just made up, and that's the opportunity cost. Let's say that Will Levis and Jalen Carter are both on the board at 6. Lions don't like any of the trade offers that they've been called up about to move up. We're going to take a player. Let's say it comes down to Jalen Carter or Will Levis, right?
Or even say Devin Witherspoon.
Sure.
Right.
Like
literally anybody. Will Levis, and then name your stud defensive player.
Right. Quarterback X, right? Like or question mark, right? Whatever it is. So the opportunity cost, if you draft Jalen Carter or Devin Witherspoon over a Will Levis, is you might be trading up. You might be trading wins in the short term. Absolutely true. And there's no guarantee that you're going to get those wins back in the long term. But what I would argue is you will have to move on from Jared Goff at some point in the future. 50 years from now, Jared Goff is not the quarterback of the Detroit Lions. So when does that change come? The change is inevitable. It can't be prevented. So when do you do it? Well, if the Lions wait, the opportunity cost that they are facing is they could have had a chance at the next quarterback for this team in the short term, 5 years, let's say. Let's just only count as rookie deal. So you give up a potential 4 to 5 years of a rookie contract QB who might be better than Jared Goff, right? And you get, not only do you get the roster savings of Jared Goff coming on, you get the rookie contract QB, right? So you're saving a bunch of money. That's going to help you spend on the roster. We talked about this a minute ago. So it's not just I'm missing out on Jalen Carter because I drafted Will Levis. But like if you draft Will Levis, yeah, you're missing out on Jalen Carter. But like would you rather have Jalen Carter or like Chauncey Gardner-Johnson? You know, maybe they can trade for Cortland Sutton, you know, and absorb that contract, or a player that that's not even on our radar right now. Maybe someone decides they want to get traded and they wipe their Instagram, you know, before the NFL trade deadline. And Detroit is sitting with the third most cap space of any team in the NFL right now. It's Chicago, Carolina, Detroit. So like Detroit is in a fantastic position to absorb an opportunity to add a player who is making decent money, whether it's before the season, during the season, who knows? So the opportunity cost is not just 1-to-1 player ratio. It's if we take Will Levis, we have all these other opportunities, or not Will Levis, it could be any quarterback, but like we have all these other opportunities that open up because we allowed ourselves the flexibility. Now, I would be torn on if it's Jalen Carter versus a quarterback at 6. Like I would be literally torn sitting there watching the first round. I would probably want them to take Jalen Carter myself, to be honest, because I agree in what Don said is that like if you have this kind of incremental building process, like you're making you're making progress, like you're getting better, and he's on a rookie deal too. The difference is that like if you draft Jalen Carter at 6 as opposed to Will Levis, either of those guys cost you the same amount of money. So like what happens if, right? Like let's say that the Raiders contract with Garoppolo, they can get out of after this season. So if they take Levis at 7 to sit behind Garoppolo, and then they take a dead cap hit in 2024 and start Levis, and he's great, like then the opportunity cost is you could have been paying that guy what you're paying Jalen Carter. So there's a lot of good reasons. So let me give you a different scenario outside of the draft. Lamar Jackson. The Lions have an opportunity to not only draft a quarterback the cheapest way they could possibly have one in the foreseeable future, they also have an opportunity to go and trade for a quarterback the cheapest way they could potentially do so in the near future. It's an unprecedented scenario in the NFL right now with the Lamar Jackson situation. 2 first-round picks for that guy, if you have to trade for a quarterback on the open market, is nothing anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the deals that we see teams make to move up in the draft, trade for established quarterbacks. Remember what Russell
went overall with 2 first-round picks.
Yeah.
And a starting wide receiver.
Yeah.
And what, a second or third or something like that?
Yeah, it was they get 6. So Carolina gave up 961, I think. So back end of the second round, a 24 first, a 24th mid-round pick, and DJ Moore.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like if you want to value Moore as like a late first round pick or an early second round pick, like it's either they gave up 2 first round picks and like 3 day 2 picks, or they traded like 3 1s and a couple of day 2s. So like to me that doesn't really change the scenario.
Yeah, the big difference is you don't get him on a rookie deal.
Right.
And
that's what they had to give up.
Yeah.
So like look at all these teams in the NFL that are paying literally through the nose to go and acquire their next quarterback. And there was no guarantee that Russell Wilson was going to be good in Denver. I mean, look what happened. There's no guarantee that Deshaun Watson was going to be good in Cleveland. Look what happened. It's the same thing. It's the same like speculation. It's the same progression. It's the same guess, whether it's a rookie or an established NFL quarterback, on whether or not they're going to be good on your team. Look at the Rams. Mike, this is no slander to Matt Stafford, okay? The Rams trade for Matthew Stafford. They win a Super Bowl. Hooray. Let's throw a parade, right? Everything worked out. F them picks. Season 2, Matt gets hurt.
So does most of their team.
Yeah, they are terrible. You just don't know. So if in light of not knowing, at least have that guess be cheap so that you can do other things that other teams can't do. And like, let's say the Ravens have no intention of signing an offer sheet for Lamar. What they got from the 32nd overall pick in his draft class was an MVP caliber player that was on their team cheap for 5 years. And they're going to get paid off by getting at least 2 first-round picks back for that guy. That's a win. That's just winning in the NFL. Like, when you want to look at what the Ravens could be doing right now, if you've ever heard the term buy low, sell high, that shit is going on. So, like, if you're going to get something, for Lamar, you've invested nothing into Lamar Jackson. You traded up into 32. Okay. So some capital. And then you get him on the 32nd pick, and he's played in the NFL for 4 years, and you're going to get twice what you spent on him. Yeah, it's a win. That can't be anything but a win. So here's the nightmare scenario. Let's say Mark is right, and the Lions have squashed any potential addition of a quarterback. Right, we're going Goff and Sudfeld, 2023. Let's roll.
YOLO.
So, and maybe they will, Mark, but that doesn't mean that the process to draft those guys was bad. It just means, like, look at the situations they're going into. Carolina, that's a pretty good situation, I'd say. It's a new situation, but it's not bad. Houston, that's a worse situation. Indianapolis, not great. They've had front office turnover. Their roster's been degrading for years. They lost their number one wide receiver in the free agency this year. Not a great scenario, right? But there are teams out there, Seattle, Detroit, that are ascending teams that have hit on a bunch of draft picks lately that are primed for the addition of a rookie quarterback to that. And even if those guys don't hit, you cannot grade the process by which you select players solely upon whether or not those players worked out. There's a ton of other factors. So you have to trust and if we really do trust Brad Holmes to make the right choice, and if they do take a quarterback at 6, you'd have to say something like, this was the right call because I trust that Brad Holmes knows what he's doing. Right? It can't just be Brad Holmes picked the player that I liked the best, so he's a good GM. That's nothing. That's just popularity. But if the team keeps improving,
it always feels better when they pick the one that you want, though. Let's be real.
So,
as a fan, right?
And so, and I have to agree with what Mike just said, because last year they drafted Aiden Hutchinson, and that's my boy. And so, I was literally trying to do cartwheels, which I have never successfully done one in my entire life, in Mike's living room last season, because I was
you were jumping up and down
oh man, it was great.
I don't even know how to describe it, to be honest. God, the live stream's going to be great this year.
The live stream's going to be great. Yeah. So, but I was just
Goff. If we do keep him, right? That's kind of the other side of the opportunity cost.
Yeah.
We do.
So let's say
where is he compared to Daniel Jones?
$40 million
for Jones.
You'd have to assume he would get more than Daniel Jones,
right? Which now means. 45, 50?
Yeah. It's let's say that the Lions decide that they need to extend him. They need to do that first. They need to if the Lions truly believe that Jared Goff is the quarterback of this team for the next 3 or 4 seasons, you need to extend him as soon as you can. Tomorrow. They're not going to, because they're going to go to the draft and see how it plays out. But let's say that they don't draft a quarterback at 6, or Hendon Hooker isn't there at pick 48 or whatever, and you don't make some investment into the future of that position this offseason. If that's the case, and you come out of the draft saying we honestly don't know the next time that we're going to be in a position to draft a guy, we should extend Jared, then do it next week. Do it the second week of May, because whomever's next up in the quarterback position is going to get more money than the guys that we saw get it this year. Plus Herbert, Burrow, they're on the horizon.
Yeah.
So
that's the scary part.
Right.
Because he's not on their level.
Right.
They're going to reset the market as though he's going to be all right, this is where I'm at.
And I'm not saying that Jared Goff would garner APY like what those players are going to get, But like what they're going to do is push the ceiling up. And then if they push that ceiling up, there's more room for Goff to say, I'd really like to make $47 million a year. And like, while I don't like Jared Goff on $30 million a year, 31, whatever, every other year, I cannot abide him getting paid 45 a year, Mark.
That's Mahomes' money. He signed a 10-year, $450 million deal. If he plays like Mahomes, cool, I will cut the check and let Brad sign it officially. And like, here you go, Jared, and high five him when I hand it off.
It's exactly right. So like,
he's got to play like him though.
Right. This is the other half of the opportunity cost that we didn't really talk about, right? So if you draft a guy at 6, you can trade Goff while he's played well, and there might be interest in acquiring him for more than you would have otherwise gotten for him. And then, I'm talking about his deal right now. Like, it's like whatever the pick in the draft is going to get like $13 million a year or whatever. So you're going to save like $20 million. But then, like, you are also not in a position where you have to pay Jared Goff a situation like this. I mean, if you guys liked what they did in free agency this year, like, imagine if they had $15 million less to go do that with, and like, there's always cap economics that you can do to like shed. They proved that they could do that this year. But like, do you want to be the New Orleans Saints? I don't, like, right.
So this to me is the real question. If not now, when? There was one of the Facebook groups that was talking about, when you would go and get a quarterback, and they're like, yeah, we know Jared Goff's not the long-term answer, but we need to stick with the plan. We need to start him this year, and then next year, go draft a quarterback to replace him. I'm like, are you planning on trading up? Are you just taking whoever's, because the plan is we're not going to be drafting until after pick 20, 24, because we made the playoffs, we made a run. If that's the case, we're not picking in the top 20 picks. So when are you picking that quarterback? Are you going to get just like the 4th best person? Because you can do that now, but have it be better. Or, you know what I'm saying? Like, so are you going to trade up, use a bunch of your draft capital, extra first, extra seconds, and make it a really expensive deal to go up and get that stud quarterback next year? Or
so let's highlight,
do you pay more?
Right. Let's highlight what Steve-O just said, can we?
Yes. This one?
Yes. Next season might be the year to go all in and trade whatever it takes for a QB. Williams, May, Ewers are all a lot better prospects, in my opinion. That second sentence, he's 100% correct. Caleb Williams may be the next great quarterback in the NFL. Like, if you had to guess on someone being able to do it, he seems like a really solid pick. Drake May has all the potential in the world. He's got to clean up his mechanics a little bit. Let's remember he was a redshirt freshman. Quinn Ewers went to Ohio State and then to Texas, so I can't stand him. Plus, he has a mullet.
Plus what?
Plus, he has a mullet, and I just can't. I hate him. Like, now, I love the way that he throws the football. I love that part, but like, he also has to hold off Arch Manning at Texas this year, and there's no guarantee about that.
Oops, wrong one.
You're wrong, Steve. May is going to be better than Williams. That's incorrect. I would trade my whole draft plus 2 future firsts for Drake May. Okay.
So now, and you can trade Drake Mays out for Williams, right? And say, all right, because that's the question is like, all right, well, if we're going to not draft a quarterback this year and we're going to next year, and we want one of these studs, well, that's what you're doing. You're going to do the whole Ricky Williams thing where I'm like, you know what? You get all my things, and I'm going to take this guy, and I'll catch you guys next year.
Everyone in the chat right now is correct that the prospects that are coming out next season are better than this one. All that does is one of two things. It either makes the trade up for one of those guys impossible because one of the teams, usually at the top of the draft, are looking to get a new quarterback. Now, let's assume that maybe that's not the case, and you have a Chicago situation this year, and that team is already in the process of determining they have their quarterback on the roster. If you are a team and let's say the Lions make the playoffs and lose in the first round, and they're picking somewhere between 18 and 22, 19 and 22. Remember what it cost Carolina to go from like 9-1 this year, and you are picking potentially 15 spots, 13 spots lower than that, and you want to entice a team at 2 or 3 to move off of their pick,
or 1 if you really got your heart set on specifically Caleb Williams or specific like, and you don't want to risk number 1 taking it. And
so it was somewhere like 2 or 3 picks. So Carolina 9-1, right, was a wide receiver, a solid
wide receiver,
a starting wide receiver. Like I would call DJ Moore a number 1 wide receiver. Mm-hmm. I don't think that he's like
he would have been statistically the best wide receiver in Chicago Bears history if he had pulled those stats in there.
Sure. So and I cannot remember.
Not bad.
What is the guy's name that got traded to the Eagles last year? I'm blanking. AJ Brown. AJ Brown. I don't think he's AJ Brown.
No.
But like I think that he has a lot of value, right? Like he was worth a first round pick. So like, to be honest, let's say the Lions are picking 20th next season, and they're like, we want Caleb Williams. We're going to construct an offer to get up to 1. Well, you can only trade your first round pick 3 years out. So their trade package would have to be something like Jared Goff, 3 1s, multiple day 2 picks. If the team at 1 is going to listen at all.
Yeah.
And like you may have to give up a player. I mean, you may have to give up like a Amon-Ra St. Brown or somebody as a sweetener to get that done.
Oh, I mean, Steve-O does that stuff all the time on Madden, he said, so it should work. No big deal.
Well, there you go, right?
So here's the other thing with taking a quarterback at number 6 is that dude's going to hold value.
Right.
So say we take a Levis and he sits behind Jared Goff for a year. Goff does okay. We make the playoffs. Maybe we even win a game for the first time in 30 years. Cool. That's winning in the playoffs is what we're trying to do here, right? We're trying to win the last game of the playoffs, but like winning 1 is that's a start, right? So we've got that, but man, we really want Caleb Williams. You know what we have? We have Will Levis or Anthony Richardson. That is going to be one of those first round draft picks that we have to give up to move up there, right? We have, if we wanted to really bump up, we say, all right, you can have Anthony Richardson and the next 2, 1s and a pair of 2s or whatever it is, what capital. They're going to keep that. It's only 1 year out. They haven't proven that they suck, right? But all they did was they proved that they couldn't displace a 7-year vet, which. Right. Let's be honest, unless you were in a situation where your starter was barely a starter and you're like Matt Ryan on the end of his career or Carson Wentz, like it's going to be hard for any quarterback to outperform and like supplant an established NFL 7-year starter that's had some success and stuff. So they haven't proven that they're bad. They have all that value and then they can potentially move up. But that's only if we take them at 6.
Right.
We're not going to, they're not going to probably do it if we take a Jalen Carter or a Witherspoon or Gonzalez.
Right. You have to have the asset to trade. Right. So, I mean, like, I think the questions that the Lions should be asking themselves is, right, if not now, when? And what are we willing to pay if not this year? Because like it doesn't matter if it's Drake May, Quinn Ewers, Spencer Rattler, any quarterback, right, that could come out of the woodworks. Like maybe J.J. McCarthy has a great season at Michigan this year, wins the Heisman and rides the narrative like into the NFL draft. Like if you're not in a position to draft that guy, it's going to cost you your foreseeable future of draft capital, plus maybe a player that you'd like to have on your roster to go get a guy who, let's face it, might also not work out. Like Caleb Williams, like Andrew Luck was a for sure thing, right? Best prospect since John Elway. But like he got hurt. He got hurt and didn't recover. Stop it. Those wide receivers at Michigan trounced OSU. So like we're fine with our wide receivers, thanks. So but I get it. The friendly rivalry or whatever. So oh, Joey, is that the quarterback from Utah that you're talking about? I like him. Yeah, I watched him against USC in the bowl game and the Pac-12 title game. Maybe it was the same thing. But like I like him. Big, strong arm, mobile. Yeah, it's all the recipe for that. But like Caleb, guys like Andrew Luck, don't work out. So sometimes like, and there's a ton of reasons why. Like it doesn't matter. Like even if you miss, you have to keep taking the shot. And like if you just delay starting to take the shot, you're just delaying how long like it might take you to find something good as well. Like people tend to really look at the negative here. And like we heard Brad Holmes say it earlier in the offseason, like it's easier to get worse at quarterback. That's true. But that's true for every position in football.
And it's also, if you have a run-of-the-mill player, it's also not super difficult to get to improve either.
Right. Like
in fact, if you have a middle-of-the-road player, just by definition, it is just as easy to get better as it is worse. Because you're in the middle. Half of them are better, half of them are worse. It's literally 50-50. So we can get better just as easily as we can get worse, to be honest.
Steve-O, there was a really good article on ESPN a while back, or maybe it was SI, about Andrew Luck and like what led him to retire. And like he was a beast and as good as advertised, and he did retire early, but there were reasons why he retired early that could have otherwise been prevented. Like his career may have been able to continue if those things were addressed. So I agree with you, but there's also to your statement. Like, what if this had also happened? Like he only played like 6 years, right? 5 years? It wasn't long. And like,
it was a little more than that.
I don't think it was more than 6. I was wrong about Kalijah Cansey, but I don't think I'm wrong about this. Let me just go to PFF real quick and I'll look him up. Andrew Luck. There he is.
So yeah, but to your point, while you're looking them up, this is going to be the cheapest we'll ever get an opportunity to draft somebody that could be that guy.
Right.
It cost us 1 pick to do it now.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 seasons. Bam!
6 seasons. Bam. On top of it, Drew, as usual.
Knowledge. So, yeah.
God, it's all the show prep you've done.
Why, Andrew? So, like, Andrew Luck was the guy that, like, when I watched him play at Stanford, I was like, I was nowhere approaching like the level of like stuff I've learned about the draft now, and I was like, this guy's amazing. Go back to like their bowl game where they played Virginia Tech, and there is a play where he has a defensive tackle literally tackling him to the ground. The guy's arms are around his legs, and he throws like a 20-yard out route on a dime to his wide receiver, and the guy tiptoes and like makes a first down. And I was like, there's two people on earth that can make that throw. I don't know who the other guy is. But I just saw him do it. So right. I would say thus far, the process that the Lions have had to go through has been to tear the roster down and start to make solid choices at positions of premium quality to rebuild the roster. The things that they have not addressed through the draft, at least with a premium pick, are corner and quarterback. Edge rusher, wide receiver, tackle, they've all done those things. If Brad Holmes continues with his kind of methodology to space out and invest those premium picks, a corner or a quarterback would be next up, in my opinion.
Steve-O is dropping some good logic bombs on us today. Some of them we fully agree with, and some of them we don't. But like, there's nothing like wild and crazy out there other than Michigan and stuff. But like, this was a good one. I like this one. I think the Lions are in a perfect position to draft a quarterback outside the first round and develop him. We have a good O-line, we have weapons, we have a good offensive coordinator.
Who is it?
Who? What do you mean who? Ben Johnson?
No. So like
DOC?
to draft a QB outside of the first round and develop them. Who is the guy?
It could be anybody. I think at this point, like we could take somebody with potential, whether that's a Hendon Hooker, maybe it's one of the other guys. Honestly, I haven't paid attention to too many of the late rounders because for me,
we can't draft Hendon Hooker because he's hurt, right? So like everyone was so negative, not on our chat, but like Lions fandom was so negative about Holmes drafting injured players, right? So they would clearly hate that move.
Yeah, I don't care about them. But I mean, I understand what he's saying. We could pick somebody, a project quarterback that's maybe a 2nd through 7th rounder at somewhere in there, and I totally get that, and that's a reasonable thing. I could definitely see that happening. Sure. In fact, I think that's more likely than us taking 6. I personally, there's a reason why people go in the top 4, top 6. They are most likely they have been voted most likely to succeed.
Sure.
That's the guy that I want. That's most likely to succeed. Not maybe we'll give it a go. Right.
I mean, like there is a reason why the majority of quarterbacks that work out in the NFL are taken early in the first round.
Yes.
Right. So like Steve says, who thought Purdy was going to take his team to the NFC Championship game? Right. So that's a good point. But like, let's be real about what Brock Purdy did. Okay. They start off the season. Trey Lance gets hurt almost immediately. Garoppolo wins them like what, 10, 11 games or whatever it was, 8, 9 games, whatever it was. And then Brock Purdy came in and like, I give him a lot of credit. They dumbed the offense down and he managed it. But like, let's also be real. Brock Purdy was not out there throwing for 400 yards and 5 touchdowns every week. He was doing what was asked of him to not lose football games. And he was on maybe the best roster, 2nd best roster in the NFC. They have a good defense, an excellent running game, and they have matchup weapons all over the field. So like, yes, did he do those things? Yeah, did he do those things? He did those things. I'm not taking those things away from him. What I'm also saying is there was no better situation for a guy like Brock Purdy to step into than what San Francisco had last year. Like if you want to put Jared Goff on their roster, I think Jared Goff could have gotten them to, what Brock Purdy did. Now we'll see this season because Shanahan says that he's earned the right to start. So if Brock Purdy gets trotted out there, week 1, I mean, like, he's not going to go winless. I mean, he's not going to go, he's not going to be perfect the whole time.
Yeah.
So, okay. Brock Purdy, Tom Brady are outliers. That's not the process you try and emulate.
And let's be real. Brock Purdy has got 5 games of NFL experience.
Right. Yeah. 6 or 7. Yeah. Something like
that.
So
let's not talk about Brock Purdy until he
and
has a career.
Can we please stop comparing Kalijah Kancey to Aaron Donald? Like Brock Purdy is not Tom Brady. Kalijah Kancey is not Aaron Donald because they play the same position and went to the same college.
Yeah, and they're both small and undersized.
Right. Like, I mean, there are similarities, but like, that does not mean that those players are going to work out the same way. Like if they want to, I mean, like if the Detroit Lions take a quarterback, the last pick of the entire draft, fine. But like you have Nate Sudfeld on the roster. Like the odds would tell you Nate Sudfeld has a greater chance of producing wins for the Detroit Lions than a 7th round rookie quarterback just because he's been in the NFL.
That's what team building is, right? If you're doing everything you can to increase the odds that your team will win the Super Bowl.
Right.
And to me, I would personally not want I would call a deep project quarterback, somebody that's going to be a 3rd to 7th rounder. We could try to develop him. I would rather spend all right, give them some experience and work on mechanics and that kind of stuff. But for the most part, those guys either have it or they don't.
Right. And like there were a ton of quarterbacks drafted in the 3rd round or later last year. I mean, like,
How many of them got to start?
Right. Like Marcus Mariota quit, so Desmond Ritter's going to get his chance. Carson Wentz was cut, so Sam Howell's going to get his chance. But, Malik Willis in Tennessee, Matt Corral got hurt. Would that have been better? If I'd used Hurts? No, I mean, like, so are there quarterbacks who are successful in the NFL who are drafted outside of the 1st round? Yeah, there are. It's way more uncommon. So, like, if you
otherwise they would have been drafted earlier. Like when you look at those redrafts, that is the hindsight, right? We knew what they were going to be. This is how they would have been.
Those redraft things are so dumb. It's like, let's put this player on this team and see what kind of season they had. Then let's go back before they were on that team and think about what if they had the same year they'd had for the team they were originally drafted on with a team that didn't draft them. They're so dumb. There's no practical purpose to doing the redrafts. It's just for like clicks and stuff, and I refuse to do it. But like, if you want the Lions to take the best chance they have to invest one of their picks on someone who's probably going to work out, the best chance is at 6. And the numbers just bear that out.
Yep. It's you're just more likely to succeed. There's a reason why you're going number 1 overall, 2 overall, 6 overall, not in the 6th round. You're just more likely to be good. Otherwise, that 6th rounder would have gone in the 1st. That's the guy I want. I want the guy that's most likely to put us into that position. And I'm fine trading in number 6 for it, even though it's not a position of need. Right. Because we do have a capable quarterback, a starting quality quarterback on the team right now, and for the next 2 years.
Right.
That's why they have the flexibility. Cut him after this next year and have it be very cheap. So we really only need to have him for 1 year.
Right.
Cool.
Mike, next week.
Yes.
Should we do a 1st round mock for all the teams?
What do you guys think? Don, Zeka, Steve-O, would that be interesting to you?
Yeah, like I think it would be interesting, but I know that I pay a lot more attention to like the situation that all teams in the NFL are in than say you, who are like maybe more interested in just what the Lions are up to. What would you think about doing that, Mike? Would you think that would be fun for you personally?
Yeah, I think that would be interesting.
We have a yes from Zakwa.
Let's do it.
Or Zaka.
We can kind of talk a little bit. We don't have to spend a ton of time on every single pick, but we got 31 picks, and say we did a 90-minute show, we could spend about 3 minutes a pick talking about different needs. And
remember, it was one less pick this year because the Dolphins
31, right? Yeah. So 93 minutes is what we go for.
Okay.
And I am getting a text from my wife saying, "Hey, don't forget you're on vacation. The fam wants you out there."
Okay. I love Andrea. She's great. She makes me food, and I love her. Yeah. But like, this is my vacation. Like I'm on it, talking to you guys right now. We can't do it right now, Joey. Mike his wife is yelling at him. So
yes.
Okay, so like we will plan on next week. We will do a 1st round mock for the 31 teams with 1st round picks. And we'll try and keep it to 60 to 90 minutes.
Right on.
We can't do it now, Joey.
We did get another subscriber in the last hour and 9 minutes. So we were up to 69.
Oh, that's great.
69 subscribers.
I can't wait till we hit 100. That's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. If anybody has any questions, if you want to throw any ideas out, obviously we're going to do this every Tuesday at 7, whether we're on vacation or not, whether we're in the state or not. But as always, like, comment, subscribe to the YouTube. email us at casualgmpodcast@gmail.com. Throw some ideas out there for what we should do for our 100th subscriber. I'd love to get some ideas out there and drop them out into the chat and see what y'all want us to do. And then lastly, you can follow us on Twitter at Casual GM Podcast.
I hate Joey so much. He's terrible. One thing we're considering doing, guys, just so that you're, I know, like this is the kind of, I mean, like he's just, that's just who
Steve-O.
I mean,
do I need to block Steve-O right now?
No.
How about Bijan?
He's starting to troll. Never a good sign. But
he just needs to grab a Snickers, Bijan, or Steve-O.
Yeah, he's hungry, right? I cannot remember what I was gonna say. I don't know.
Goodbye. Have fun. Good luck.
Were going to.
Safe. Oh,
we were considering making a Facebook group, and so that we could stream this on YouTube and into the Facebook group simultaneously. I don't know if that would be better for some reason for anybody.
Yeah, we were thinking about Facebook. We were also thinking about having a Discord specifically around this kind of concept, cat management, team building, and that kind of stuff.
Oh my gosh, my eyes are watering.
Well, it's because you've been staring at the screen too long, and it's time to get off. So anyway, we can talk about that maybe a little bit more next time with the Facebook group and a potential Discord, and see what everybody thinks. Email us, tweet us, and let us know what you think on that idea as well.
Or comments in the YouTube.
Right on.
Stuff. We're so bad at this.
Well.
All right, man. I gotta go. My eyes are freaking out for some reason.
I gotta head out too.
All right, guys.
I will catch you guys next Tuesday. We'll see you guys.
Talk to you later. Bye.